Hey guys, welcome back. I know it's been a little while since my last long form video, so I apologize about that, but I've been pretty busy, but it's good to be back. Today, I wanted to dive into something that I was thinking about the other day when I was out on my patio smoking a cigar, and that was cigar pairings. It occurred to me that there are so many different options and so many different ways that you can pair a cigar, so I thought I'd make a video on it. A quick disclaimer before we dive in, I just want to emphasize that this video is intended for educational purposes only. This is not meant to promote, encourage, or facilitate the use or sale of any of the items I'm discussing. These are just my personal opinions and experiences, so just make sure you do your own research and form your own opinions. So now that I got that out of the way, why am I making this video? So I already kind of mentioned it, but if you follow me on Instagram, you know that I feature a lot of spirits in my cigar content and in my pictures. If you don't follow me on Instagram, my name on Instagram is also Stogie Tribe. Links in the description of every video. But while these bottles that I'm taking pictures of make for a really nice picture, they are definitely not the only thing that you can pair with a cigar, and they're honestly not even what I most commonly pair with a cigar when I'm enjoying a cigar. So I'm putting this video together to give you guys a really solid list of cigar pairings, and it's going to include both alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages that pair great with cigars. So these pairings are in no particular order, but I'm going to start with spirits, like hard spirits. So the first spirit is going to be whiskey. I think this is probably one of the most popular spirit pairings for a cigar, and specifically I'm talking about bourbon, rye, and then malted whiskeys like Scotch here. Like I mentioned earlier, the profiles of these whiskeys are just really complementary to the profiles of most cigars, so they go really well together. One thing I would say if you are pairing a whiskey is to look for the proof. I personally like a little bit higher proof. I think it holds up to the cigars a little bit better. You can see there the Jefferson's on the left has 130 proof. That might be too high for some people. I tend to like it higher proof. I think it has more flavor. But I would say in general, if you can tolerate it, a little higher proof is usually better for cigar pairings. Rums, specifically dark rums, are another great spirit to pair with cigars. I typically tend to gravitate towards the bourbons and other whiskeys just because they're more readily available or commonly available with the higher proofs, and rums tend to be on the lower proof side. There are higher proof options like the Smith & Cross in front of me, and there's some other rums as well that have higher proof offerings that are just a little harder to come by. But the flavor profile of rums are also very complementary to the profile of cigars, very similar to the whiskeys. With rums, they do come from like a lot of different regions, same with almost any spirit, but I do find that with rum specifically, it really makes a difference with the profile of the rums. So one notable example is going to be the Smith & Cross, which is a Jamaican rum. It's known for its funkiness. Some people really like it. Some people may not like it. I like it in cocktails, but I don't really like it neat. So just keep that in mind when you're looking for rums. Also look for additive-free options. I'm not super knowledgeable when it comes to rums, but the more I get into it, I'm learning a little bit more. So a lot of rums, popular rums that you might see out there, are filled with additives like coloring and also sugars. So I'd probably recommend staying away from those and try to find something additive free. And like I mentioned earlier, if you can find something with a higher proof, it is probably worth giving a try, just so it holds up a little bit better to the cigar itself. And then we have tequilas. I know a lot of people really like pairing their cigars with tequila. I think it's a little bit more of a polarizing option, but it can be really good. I do like tequila with the right cigar. It also has to be the right tequila. I think it's just a little bit more difficult to pair tequila with a cigar because it does have a bit of a different profile. I think a couple of things to look for here, similar to rums, really similar to all spirits. You just want to make sure they're additive free, and then specifically with tequilas, you're going to want to make sure they're 100% agave. When it comes to the actual pairings, I think Mezcal and some darker tequilas make for better pairings because they're more in line with the profile of cigars. So this Bozal right in the middle, that's a Mezcal, and then the El Tesoro and Siete Leguas, they are both reposados. So reposados are a good option. And then if you go for an añejo or an extra añejo, they're going to have more of that barrel influence, a little bit more like a whiskey potentially. And that's where I would kind of start my search if I were to pair a tequila with a cigar. I've never had it, but apparently they do make a tequila or several tequilas that have been aged in ex-bourbon barrels to get more of that bourbon influence and that barrel influence. So that could be another really good option as well. And then lastly here for the spirits, we have liqueurs. I personally don't usually drink these neat, but they are very tasty. But I do typically like to mix them. But they do have profiles that can really elevate the profile of the cigar, and they're really complementary. And so again, I would probably go for a darker liqueur. So Kahlua is a great coffee liqueur. Also Bailey's is a nice creamy coffee liqueur. And then a more unique option here is this Louisa's liqueur, which is coffee, caramel, and pecan. It's delicious, and it's from the Nelson Greenbrier distillery. So these can also make for a really nice cigar pairing. So next up, I want to talk about cocktails. I'm just going to use these different bottles here as placeholders while I talk about this. But cocktails are obviously an awesome pairing for cigars. I think they can bring a lot of balance to the pairing, and also they can kind of bring their own profile a little bit, which can then elevate the profile of the cigar or potentially even change it a little bit. So I think pairing cocktails and cigars can be really interesting. Also, they're a great option for people that don't like to drink their spirits neat and would prefer to have it mixed. Again, cocktails are a great pairing option. I would say to stick with spirit-forward cocktails. So, you want the spirit to kind of shine in the cocktail because that's what's going to provide most of the complementary flavors of the pairing. I'll leave some of my favorites in the description so you guys can see what cocktails I like to pair with my cigars. But also let me know some of your favorites down in the comments. I'd love to see what you guys are drinking. If you want to leave the recipe, that'd be fantastic. But a couple I think worth mentioning, so you kind of get the gist of what a spirit forward cocktail. I would say an old fashioned or a Manhattan, both whiskey cocktails. I think a Presidente is a really nice spirit forward cocktail made with rum. And then one of my absolute personal favorites is called the Black Cuban, I believe, and it's very similar in some ways to a White Russian, but this cocktail is dark rum, it's coffee infused simple syrup, and it's heavy cream, and it's served on ice, and it is just a great cigar pairing. The other nice thing about pairing a cigar with a cocktail is that cocktails are usually served chilled, so they will help keep your palate cool, which is really nice since, sometimes when you're smoking a cigar, it can dry your palate out and the smoke itself can become warm. And this will kind of just help reset your palate and so the cigar remains enjoyable for longer. And I think, as we move on with this list here, you'll see that, most of these drinks can be served cold. Next up, another great cigar pairing is beer. I love a nice, cool, crisp beer. Honestly, I think pretty much any beer can pair well with a cigar. I've genuinely never had a beer I didn't enjoy when pairing it with cigar, but I do think some beers are probably more fit for a cigar pairing. So these beers I think are going to be your darker beers that tend to pair particularly well with a cigar. This one right here is called a Schwarzbier. I believe it's a dark German styled beer. It's a pretty light beer with just a darker flavor profile, and that's kind of the same thing here with this stout beer. So both of these are craft from like local breweries, so that's a great place to try new options. But also Guinness is a great beer for pairing with a cigar. Kind of on the same level as beer, you have wine. I think wine as a cigar pairing is okay. I've had some good cigar and wine pairings, but I think for the most part, a cigar just kind of overpowers the wine. And wines are also very nuanced and very delicate. And I think that they're probably better paired with food, a meal, or just enjoyed on their own. Moving on to some of the non-alcoholic beverage pairings. My personal favorite, probably, and I know a lot of people are probably going to share this same opinion, but it has to be coffee. Coffee is a note commonly found in cigars, and it's that dark, bold, maybe semi-earthy profile that just pairs so well with a lot of cigars. So this is just a natural pairing. There's really no wrong way to pair a cigar and coffee. I would probably suggest to brew your own coffee, whatever style you like, and make sure you're using high quality beans. One way that you can sometimes tell that a bean is a little bit higher quality is if it has the roast date on the bag. So you can see here this was roasted July 2024. So these beans are nice and fresh. They're going to be really high quality. If you have a local roaster near you, I'm sure you could buy beans from them and they'd be fantastic. I don't think the roast level of the coffee matters all too much here, although if you want to be on the safe side, try to go for something maybe medium dark roast. Sometimes the lighter roasts coffees can have more acid and more fruity kind of zesty profiles, which may not pair great with cigars. But I just picked these two up at Whole Foods. I think these are great beans. I enjoy them. As far as the actual coffee drinks themselves, my go-tos are going to be a latte that I make on my espresso machine, or an iced coffee, and I'll just do like a pour over that I like cool and then pour over ice. Again, I like iced coffee because it helps keep my palate cool while I'm smoking a cigar, but obviously hot coffee is a great pairing. If you have espresso, you can make a hot Americano or an iced Americano even, that'd be great. And then just classic espresso is always a good option. Another option here that I think a lot of people probably don't consider and that they overlook is going to be tea. Tea is actually one of the most complex drinks on the planet, and it has a lot of nuances, and I find that it pairs surprisingly well with cigars. I like an iced tea, so I'll just brew the tea, let it cool, and then pour it over ice. Unless it's hot out, then a hot tea is nice. But when you're looking for teas, I would just say look for a darker tea. Black teas are good. I think English breakfast tea is another option. I personally like this Egyptian licorice tea. It has a nice sweetness, a little spiciness, and it really pairs well with a lot of different cigars. Another great cigar pairing is going to be soda. I don't personally like to drink soda with cigars. There's nothing wrong with it, just not my preference. I mean, I love soda with food and having it with a meal, but I just don't typically mix soda with cigars. But I do know a lot of people do enjoy that, so I wanted to make sure I had it on here. If you do like drinking soda and you want to try pairing it with cigar, I would suggest staying away from some of the sodas that have a more zesty or more fruity profile, and instead I would probably go for something like a root beer. That's a great option. Have this one over here. This is a cream soda, another great option. I probably wouldn't recommend this one, to be honest. I thought that was a cola, but or just a regular cola like a Coke or a Pepsi, Coke Zero. Those are all great options. Dr. Pepper, I think, is another great option. This is not health advice by any means, but I would probably go for something with a little less sugar personally. And these ones that I have here are actually great options. They're low sugar. I think they're supposed to be healthier than a soda, and they taste really good. But this is not health advice. Again, just my opinion. But these are really good if you want to try pairing a soda with a cigar. And now, if you guys have made it this far into the video, you're in luck, because I have saved the best cigar pairing for last, and that is going to be water. Water is my absolute favorite cigar pairing. I know it seems like a really vanilla choice or a really boring choice, but it is my personal preference. Water's great because it keeps you hydrated while you're smoking a cigar, which is really important because cigars can have a really drying effect on your palate. So they help rehydrate you. They also, I've found, kind of help reduce the level of, what people might refer to as cigar breath. I think if you're staying hydrated while you're smoking, it definitely has less of an effect. And so, I know I don't want to have stinky breath, so I appreciate it. I know my wife really appreciates it. But water, I would say, is, it's maybe a boring option, but it's a really underrated option The other nice thing about water is because it's just neutral, it doesn't impact the flavor of the cigar any which way. And so when you pair water with a cigar, it really allows you to just fully experience the cigar as it was intended. And let's just be honest, it is also without a doubt the most affordable thing you can pair with a cigar. So that's going to wrap it up for today's video. I hope you guys found this helpful or informative, and that maybe you found a new beverage to pair with your cigar. Again, I would love to hear what you guys are pairing with your cigars. Drop it down in the comments. Doesn't matter if it's an alcoholic beverage or a non-alcoholic beverage. Let me know what you guys are drinking, and if you do have a special drink and you want to share the recipe for it, that would be fantastic. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.